Welcome to the Unraveling the Scriptures channel. Did you know that women danced naked during rituals in Babylon while a colossal tower, 8,032 feet tall, was being built? This structure would have been 3 times taller than the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the modern world. Astonishing facts like these surround the epic story of the Tower of Babel. For a long time, many scientists believed it was impossible for such a tower to have ever existed. But a recent experiment proved that with the technology of that time, it was entirely feasible. Researchers used the same clay found in ancient Mesopotamia to mold bricks like those mentioned in the Bible and tested them using a hydraulic press. A typical sun-dried brick shattered under just 880 pounds of pressure, limiting construction to a tower of about 492 feet. That's when they decided to strictly follow the biblical instruction. Let us burn them thoroughly. The bricks were fired at 800 degrees Celsius for 12 hours. The result? A brick strong enough to withstand 6,600 pounds of pressure. With that level of resistance, calculations showed it would be possible to build a structure up to 9,842 feet tall. In other words, the Tower of Babel, at a staggering 8,032 feet, was entirely within the physical limits of the era. It would be like stacking 3 Burj Khalifas on top of one another, but without steel, cranes, or reinforced concrete. Only mud bricks, fire, and a sticky substance extracted from the Babylonian soil. Now imagine the challenge. How do you coordinate 100,000 people working in perfect synchronization on a project of this magnitude? That's exactly what we're about to explore. 43 years. That's how long it took to raise the Tower of Babel, more time than many work in their entire lifetime. But the most impressive part wasn't the duration, it was the organization. 100,000 workers, operating together every single day for more than 4 decades. The laborers were organized into squads of 1,000, each with its own leader. They worked in 3 rotating shifts. While some slept, others carried bricks. The work never stopped. Not on Saturdays, not on sacred days. It was a human machine, operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The logistics were brutal. Every worker needed to eat 3 times a day. That meant preparing 300,000 meals daily. Bakers, cooks, and assistants were dedicated solely to feeding the builders. Water came from the Euphrates River, transported in ceramic jars, carried on the backs of donkeys and enslaved laborers. But the price of construction was steep. Deaths were constant, falls from great heights, crushings by hardened mud blocks, exhaustion under the scorching desert sun. It's estimated that 10 people died every day. Over 43 years, more than 150,000 lives were lost. Each floor of the tower was quite literally built upon blood and human sacrifice. But what was inside the tower? The Tower of Babel wasn't just a pile of bricks. It was a monumental and complex structure with secret chambers, hidden corridors, and spiral staircases forming a true vertical labyrinth. Each of the 7 levels served a specific function, and what happened inside was just as breathtaking as its height. The base measured about 295 feet per side, nearly an entire city block. The first floor, around 164 feet tall, housed massive storehouses where food, water, bricks, and bitumen were stockpiled. The second floor was residential, dormitories for the master builders and their families. Yes, people actually lived inside the tower during its construction. From the 3rd to 5th floors were the workshops, blacksmiths forging tools, carpenters shaping wooden molds, and potters crafting ceramic containers. But the 6th floor was the most mysterious. It was the religious center of the tower, chambers dedicated to sacred rituals. There, women danced naked around the fire, invoking the favor of the gods so the tower might reach the heavens. Ancient tablets, uncovered by archaeologists, describe these rituals in vivid detail. It was a cult of human power, of greatness, of the desire to touch the divine with one's own hands. The 7th and final level of the Tower of Babel was the most sacred, a celestial observatory. There, priests watched the stars, interpreted the heavens, and sought communion with the gods. The inner walls were lined with polished bitumen, creating a dark, mirror-like surface that reflected the flickering torch flames like an inverted sky. But there was a colossal challenge. How could they transport heavy materials thousands of feet upward with no elevators? This was the brutal daily reality for the tower's workers. They awoke at 4 a.m., ate hardened bread and raw onions, and began the climb. Hundreds of feet, ascending spiral ramps that wrapped around the tower, carrying bricks weighing nearly 33 pounds in each hand. No handrails, no safety equipment. One slip meant a deadly fall, and the bodies of those who fell, buried in the foundations of the tower. It was believed their spirits would help hold the structure together. Despite the danger, volunteers were never scarce. Why? Because payment came in pure silver. A tower laborer earned in a single month what a farmer made in an entire year. Work began before sunrise to escape the desert's searing heat. Each man carried 2 bricks at a time, trudging up the ramps beneath a merciless sun. For heavier loads, they used a revolutionary system of ropes and pulleys, wooden logs as pulleys, ropes woven from palm fibers, 50 men pulling in perfect sync, guided by the beat of a drum. When the drum beat quickened, it meant someone important was ascending. When the drum suddenly stopped, it meant someone had fallen. At night, the workers slept in tents surrounding the tower. The air was thick with the smell of sweat, bitumen, and death. But darker than the exhaustion was the fear that one day no one would be able to understand one another. And that day came. It was an ordinary morning in the 46th year of construction. Workers began their routine as always, carrying bricks, bitumen, tools. Then suddenly, something inexplicable happened. A mason shouted an order to his assistant, but the assistant just stared, confused. He couldn't understand a word. It was as if the master had spoken in an entirely foreign tongue. Within minutes, chaos erupted across the site. No one understood anyone anymore. Commands turned into noise. Master builders waved their arms in desperation, trying to be understood. Workers dropped tools, panicking. Some thought they'd gone deaf. Others believed they were cursed. Panic spread instantly. On the 6th floor, a group didn't understand the warning about a loose beam. 5 men were crushed. On the ground floor, carriers let go of ropes, suspending tons of materials. Dozens died in the collapse. Within hours, centuries of accumulated knowledge collapsed with one word: Babel. Total confusion. The consequences were devastating. Families could no longer recognize each other by speech. Husbands could not understand their wives. Fathers could no longer speak to their own children. Groups instinctively gathered by similar-sounding tongues, seeking shelter among their own. Within 3 days, of the original 100,000 workers, fewer than 1,000 remained. The rest fled in all directions, forming caravans that would become the seeds of entire nations. The greatest human endeavor was abandoned overnight. But what's even more astonishing is that archaeological evidence supports this story. If you're someone who loves to explore the darkest secrets of the Bible, the ones never mentioned in Sunday sermons, subscribe to this channel now. Why build so high? The official version says, pride. They wanted to reach the heavens. But cuneiform tablets reveal something far more complex. The memory of the flood, which had occurred only 130 years earlier, was still a fresh wound. The survivors lived under the trauma of annihilation. Nimrod, grandson of Noah, had lost dozens of relatives in the waters. His obsession wasn't just about power, it was about survival. "We will never be caught unprepared again," reads a tablet excavated in 1922. The tower would rise to 8,000 feet. Not even the mightiest flood could reach its summit. It would be humanity's ultimate refuge. But there was more. The tower was also intended to serve as a cosmic antenna. At the top, priests would receive divine messages about coming catastrophes, droughts, plagues, invasions. Like a Wall Street informant who senses a crash before it happens, they would wield knowledge before disaster. And knowledge is power. Absolute power was the real goal. There was also a practical aspect: strategic visibility. An 8,000-foot structure could be seen from anywhere in Mesopotamia. Lost caravans would use it as a beacon. Enemy armies would tremble before a civilization capable of such a feat. It was the ultimate power display of the ancient world. But building that high came at a cost, and it wasn't measured in gold or silver. It was paid in something far more precious: human lives. The greatest mystery of the Tower of Babel isn't how it was built, it's how it disappeared. A structure approximately 8,200 feet tall, raised on a 970-square-foot base, doesn't just vanish. And yet, that's exactly what happened. Where we should see the largest pile of ruins in human history, there is nothing. Three main theories attempt to explain the enigma. First theory: a catastrophic earthquake. Mesopotamia lies on active tectonic plates, and a magnitude 9 quake could, theoretically, bring down such a structure. But earthquakes leave signs: mounds of debris, ground fissures, displaced sediments. And there is no geological record of any such quake from that time. Second theory: gradual dismantling. After the confusion of languages, people may have looted the tower's bricks to build new cities. It makes sense. High-quality bricks were extremely valuable. But we're talking about over 600 million bricks, enough to supply construction for centuries. And yet, archaeologists have found no trace of this material scattered across the region. Third theory, the most controversial one: divine disintegration. Ancient texts speak of fire from heaven and claim the tower turned to dust overnight. Scientifically impossible? Maybe. But it's the only hypothesis that explains the complete absence of ruins, as if the matter itself simply ceased to exist. What we know for certain is this: something extraordinary happened, and modern expeditions are still searching for answers. On the highest level of the Tower of Babel, around 7,875 feet above the ground, there existed a secret chamber. Very few were ever allowed inside. Not even the builders could enter. Only high priests and their virgin priestesses had access. What happened inside was Babylon's most guarded secret. Recently deciphered cuneiform texts revealed the unthinkable. They were trying to open a portal, literally. They believed that at the right altitude and with the correct rituals, they could tear the veil between worlds. According to the writings, where heaven touches earth, the gods walk among men. The tower's summit was designed as a cosmic machine, a circle of polished obsidian about 98 feet in diameter, engraved with astronomical symbols. At its center stood a solid gold altar, where virgins danced naked under the full moon. Their menstrual blood was collected and mixed with liquid mercury, forming a magic mirror said to reflect other realms. Many of the priestesses went mad. Records tell of women who saw too much and never spoke coherently again. One of them, before leaping from the tower, screamed, "They are coming! The stars have eyes!" Her body was never found. Witnesses claimed she dissolved into light before hitting the ground. Perhaps the confusion of languages wasn't a divine punishment. Maybe they succeeded. Maybe something came through that portal. What do you think really happened? Was it God's judgment? Or did something cross over into our world? The builders of the Tower of Babel may have uncovered truths that humanity would only rediscover millennia later. It wasn't black magic. It wasn't alien technology. It was pure alchemy. And it all began with something deceptively simple: mud from the banks of the Euphrates. They molded bricks using a special kind of clay, not ordinary clay, but a rare compound found only in that region. But the real secret came next. Unlike typical homes of that era, whose bricks were sun-dried, the bricks of Babel were fired in enormous kilns, reaching temperatures of 1,470 degrees Fahrenheit, 800 degrees Celsius. This intense heat transformed the molecular structure of the clay, making each brick as strong as stone. Yet even that wasn't the ultimate trick. The true genius was in the adhesive. They used natural bitumen, a thick, tar-like petroleum that oozed from the earth in black pools. When heated, the bitumen penetrated deep into the brick pores, forming a bond stronger than modern cement. It's so durable that archaeologists have found Babel bricks still stuck together after 4,000 years. They tried separating them with hammers and failed. Each brick weighed about 33 pounds, 15 kilograms, and had impressive dimensions. To complete the tower, they needed 600 million bricks. It was an industrial-scale production, 50,000 bricks per day, 365 days a year, with kilns running non-stop. To sustain this colossal energy demand, entire forests were consumed as fuel. But all that technology would have meant nothing without solving one fundamental problem: how to lift 33-pound bricks more than 6,500 feet, nearly 2 kilometers into the air. If you were already amazed by the engineering behind the Tower of Babel, just wait until you see what we've uncovered about Noah's Ark. Click now on the video appearing on your screen and discover how Noah built a 3-story ship capable of carrying 70,000 animals. The scientific evidence will leave you speechless. God bless you, and I'll see you soon.